you're not going to go out and put all your eggs in one basket. You're a fool to do that.
Right.
Because, everything goes up and down, and you can weather any storm if you're, diversified, and you can come out of that storm much stronger. But if you do like he does.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back.
Yeah, glad to be back.
So a buddy of mine and I were having this conversation on text yesterday about the value of the dollar because I saw this clip on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I thought, hey, this will be a great place to talk about it with a bank CEO.
Well, I know. And I just fresh off of a vacation in the Bahamas.
Yeah. So you're clear.
And
you're ready to
seeing
go.
the value of what they're spending, I am not ever going to complain about the prices here of food.
All right. Let me show the clip. All right, I'll show it to you so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. It's on Instagram. Here we go.
Right. My house in Miami Beach was $100,000 in 1930. It was appraised at $46 million a few years ago. Do the calculation. It's on a path to be worth $100 million, which means that the U.S. dollar will have lost 99.9% of its value over 100 years. Warren Buffett knows this. Charlie Munger knows this. Basically, the bottom line there is your money in the bank isn't money. Okay, so the answer is you shouldn't have any money in a bank, right? You're basically losing 7% of all your wealth every year in a good year. If it's the dollar, you're losing 15% of your wealth.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the part that he's talking about, he's partially right. It's a lot of bullshit clickbait because, there's expenses that go into the value of his home too. Mm-hmm. So did he keep it up? I guarantee you his home looks completely different and renovated now than it did when he said, how long ago did he have it? 40 years?
So this was, he was talking about the price of it was $100,000 when it was built in 1936. I don't think he didn't own it then.
Yeah.
But, I think it was like 46 million. Was it?
Okay, so how about you go plug in there the property taxes between all those years?
Yeah.
How about you plug in there all the insurance you had to pay for it, all the renovations, all the extra stuff you had to put in there? So when you say a statement like that, it's completely fucking false. So
that's great.
100%. Not to say that, yes, you've got to have real estate appreciation. I 100% believe in that. But, I mean, when you're just comparing one thing to another, the cash aside, and also you have effort. If you did leave it into a high yield savings account, I mean, you went through times in the 70s and 80s where you're getting 18% too. Mm-hmm. So, he's not comparing like to like.
Yeah.
And also, if you do have money sitting in an account, that is zero effort. Right. And time is money.
Yes.
So, it's not apples to apples and compare that. But yes, 100% well balanced. Definitely agree. You need real estate. My own personal life.
Yeah, you need other things other than just cash in the bank, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that this is it's very misleading because there's a lot of things to pull out here. And, I could just pick a couple.
He'll sell you cryptocurrency right after that too.
Right. Usually there's an agenda, right? So there's a little bit of what's going on here. But let's take the agenda aside and just speak on the facts of what he's saying. And that is misleading. So what you're saying is one portion of it. The other portion of it is, I'm sure that where he lives, where his house is very gentrified. It's very gated. It's very different than other aspects of Miami. Now, Miami is well,
there's only so many locations like that in the world too.
Right. So if you say it was built in 1936, my parents are from Miami, and my parents tell me stories about what Miami looked like and what it was back in 1950 because they were born in the 40s. So we're pretty close in time frame. And Coconut Grove was,
and don't forget the hurricanes that you had to go through,
right? All this stuff
to replace.
but neighborhoods like Coconut Grove were really nothing, and there was very few houses. There's little cracker box houses, and my dad would get on his bike and ride for miles, and it's all dirt roads, and so it's really nothing. So, it started in 1936. His house is built apparently 100,000. So you're already at $100,000 home. Right in 1936,
and that was huge.
Let's think about what that, what would that
1936? You could have bought the land for $5,000
for $5,000. Well, you could have bought in Miami for $5,000 too, right? Because that's what it was. So let's start there. That's a one point. But I think getting to the fact of where is the house and what are the comps on the house, it's not apples to apples like you were saying, because when you look at my dad's home, which was an average, family's home, which was probably bought for $5,000 with a small mortgage. And then you look at this home, which was $100,000. That's, let's look at the house that my dad grew up in now, and let's see what it's worth. I drove through that street.
Okay. Did you already look it up?
I didn't look at the price, but if I had to guess, it's probably like 900,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that range.
I was just down in that area for a banking conference last December, and in the Coconut Grove, in that area of there. I mean, the houses are you're really not going to, it's going to be not a good one for $1 million, but a couple $1 million in there. So the fact that he's $45 million, no.
Right.
He didn't have that 100,000. That thing had to be renovated and added on so many times for that level. Nobody's going to pay $100 million for, a 2,800 square foot house that was probably typical back then too.
Right. Well, here's the bigger issue for me. I have a couple points. One is the house value is sort of, again, make it make sense for me. It's sort of irrelevant because we're talking about the value of a currency. We're not talking about the value of a home. We're saying this home is worth $46 million. And yes, you can look at the value of the currency, as assets are traded against it. You have this home and it's worth a certain amount of dollars, but it's also worth a certain amount of bananas, right? And a certain amount of like Bitcoin or whatever else you want to put on it.
Correct.
So we're just using dollars because that's what we're trading in right now. But the house will have an intrinsic value of its own piece of land, the building on it, the AC unit, all the things that go with it, all the additions. And so we're not comparing apples to apples. If he wants to compare apples to apples, you're saying the value of the dollar based on some of these reference points versus the value of another currency, the euro, the yen, a Bitcoin, whatever. To me, you can't.
He's confusing a lot of different
You're
areas.
confusing people who don't really know about all these different aspects.
And he's a part of, too, we got to think Bitcoin helped inflation as well, because now you've got something of a perceived value that people are pegging at now roughly $30,000, $40,000. In essence, you could borrow from and then create USD artificially. Yeah. So you are having these extra assets that weren't there years ago is also inflating the value, more currency out in circulation.
Right.
So,
and I think that it's bad on another level to insinuate that banks are bad. Basically, that's what he's doing, is he's saying, you don't want your money in a bank. Okay, well, let's unravel all of that, because it's not really the bank that is the problem. Because as I know with Surety, you're very forward thinking and you're into other currencies, and you are open to your customer base not having cash. You're open to them having other types of digital currencies.
They need to be diversified.
Right? You're not saying that they should have cash. So it's not being extrapolated. This conversation is very muddled. There's a lot of things going on here that are very confusing to the average person. And all it does is it takes this sort of surface level, rake on what the average person knows about all these things. And they say, oh, well, yeah, that sounds just right. But the last point I have, which I think is the kicker for me, is, and again, please help it make sense, is he's using Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. He throws them in there to say, almost insinuating, look, they're dumb.
No, he was saying they know that.
They're smart.
They know this.
But they're not telling you, the average person. I'm telling you, the average person. Look, I'm being transparent where they're not.
They're completely transparent.
My question is, again, back to the real estate, you have to decouple the real estate from the currency, because you have to decouple a company from the currency. Munger and Buffett don't invest in the dollar. Now, I don't know, they may have some investment in currency trading, but probably not. They invest in companies all over the world.
If you look at them, they always usually shore up a ton of liquidity too.
Yes.
Because that enables you to get better pricing on assets.
Opportunities.
If you have everything always tied up in real estate. And there was another thing, when you throw out real estate like this too, people value real estate in their mind. They peg it to the dollar. I remember this was back in 2008, 2007. And I'll give you rough numbers. The guy. And it was a guy that had been doing real estate investments, single family homes, and buying it. And he's like, I have 12 homes and we'll just say 10 homes and they're worth $150,000 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm worth, $1.5 million. And I said, okay, that's great. I said, you're going to convert that into cash. How much is it? He's not worth $1.5 million. You
Right.
still have to convert that over.
It's
And
just a
what is the
balance
cost
sheet.
to convert it? So now you have to sell 10 individual houses over a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And what happens? You're going to lose nearly 8 to 10% in commissions, doc stamps,
Taxes.
intangible taxes, and everything else on that. So I said, okay, so now you liquidate in this. You're not worth that much. If you want to take that out and then buy others, you're worth extra down. He didn't know that. And then, so just having that conversation with him, I'm like, no, you've got to have real estate come to this, but don't give yourself the illusion you're comparing to the dollar that you're worth that. Those assets aren't worth that. Take it out. What is it going to be at this time? Net figure that to cash.
Right.
What is it actually?
Right.
That $1.5 million? No, you're closer to 1.2.
Right.
You're listening to what things are listed for. You're not looking at things that actually sold too.
Right.
And people have a hard time actually looking. Well, my neighbor's got his house for sale for this. Yeah. Did you look into detail and see how much they gave up? House right behind me just sold, listed price for like $575. But you know what I saw prior to closing? They put a new roof on. So they had to spend what, 30 extra thousand.
Yeah.
So that $575 they sold for, no, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And they had to pay extra money on that $30,000 on the roof. So it kept on dinging down. And that people fail to look at all of that.
That's right. Yeah. I think that, I think you're right. I think that people, my moral of this story would be, don't believe what we're saying, right? Go look it up for yourself. Go research it for yourself. Don't believe what this guy's saying.
Yes.
It's so easy to just scroll through your phone and be impressed by all these big words and, fancy editing.
What you don't want to do is you get somebody that said, that has a fixed salary. They're doing well, but the likelihood of their annual salary is going to be, say, 3 to 5, maybe 10% high inflation increase. They're at a good solid job, and then they put everything into real estate where now their leverage are like, oh, my debt service coverage is exactly 125, but then there's no room for any type of error.
That's right.
And oh, what did you do? Well, you put everything in real estate. Now there's a hiccup, and now you're put out. No, diversify. Have some money in cash. Have some money in Bitcoin. Have some money in each. But you just don't be a zealot like this on one thing.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, and just to sort of bring this all back around to the nature of what we're usually talking about on this show about expanding, is that invest in yourself and your company, because what you're doing is you're investing in something that will grow irregardless of where you're pegging the value to, whether it's bananas or the dollar or Bitcoin or whatever.
Correct.
You're going to be able to cash out on your company and the assets in your company and leverage those assets in whatever way you need to. But if you're investing in the growth of your company, in my opinion, there's really very few things other than your personal growth that is worth investing in because of the long play of those assets.
Well, and let's face it, real estate, I believe, has made more millionaires than anything else.
Yeah, right.
So real estate
and
is
I think
absolutely
diversifying
fantastic.
is a good idea.
100%.
Yeah.
Need to own real estate. You need to get that income coming in, get that depreciating, get your taxes, be able to, you need that.
It's almost like being agnostic about what is the best and what is the silver bullet. There is not one. It's more about your proclivity to life and how you are best suited to build assets and create wealth. Because there's a lot of people that are just perfectly built for real estate, multifamily, whatever the perfect niche is, and they probably shouldn't diversify as much. Because they're just so good at it. So there's certain people are so good at building ice cream shops or whatever. And, go all in. Of course, diversification never hurts. But I think for the average person, if you're not sure, invest in yourself so that you can leverage it against whatever you diversify in. But investing in a company is a great idea. Maybe owning your real estate where your company lives or works. Those type of things are a natural wealth builder, and it makes a lot of sense. But when we get stuff like this, it's it really can throw people for a loop because they just believe it at first glance.
You know, I've other people like him. I'll have like or follow on Instagram just kind of see what kind of stuff they're pulling out, and I've had to like defollow all of them because one, they're selling overall dangerous advice or whatever, and they're giving you the one example where got lucky on this rate of return, and it's never as good as what I think it's going to be.
Yeah,
and you know, and ultimately they want to say that $100 pamphlet or whatever, and and tell you to. But there's also different stages. When you have zero money, you can risk anything.
Yeah.
But then when you start having a base, you've got a home, you've got a wife, you've got children that you need to pay for. You know, you're not going to go out and put all your eggs in one basket. You're a fool to do that.
Right.
Because, everything goes up and down, and you can weather any storm if you're, diversified, and you can come out of that storm much stronger. But if you do like he does, go ahead. If you would have sunk everything in Bitcoin at the times that he said, you'd be sunk. But if you put, some in it, then you're not worried.
That's right. I mean, if you were to take his path, you could easily do the same thing because of all the stories you've seen, all the successes you've seen. You could pick out one and say, we funded this, chain of gas stations and they killed it. And here's why. And you could just go on a rant and be like, everybody needs to be in the gas station business and on and on and on and on. It just would be bad for so many people. But that one or two people that it would be good for, that's great. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah, go work at the gas station, see how you feel.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's like, again, it's for a certain person. I mean, retail and low margin items having high volume, that's for a certain type of person. And if you're not that person, you might not want to be in that business.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, this was a little different than we normally do, but hopefully it was valuable. Breaking down some of these things we see on social media. Maybe we'll do some more of this.
Yeah, you use these clips as excitement of getting you thinking about something and researching more and seeing where to go into. But
that's right.
Those figures he's given out.
Do your homework.
They're complete BS.
Yeah.
He's not talking in the cost that it's held that you've had to do during all that time. How many major crises that happened in real estate during that time? They could have been sunk if you would have had all your money into that real estate. You wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, and it's not hating on Bitcoin or hating on real estate or hating on companies or Warren Buffett. It's like all of these have had their bad days. So, it's more about being, I think
Warren
the
Buffett
message here is
understands liquidity and diversification.
That's right. Yeah, if anybody does.
No,
it's almost like the maybe not the grandfather, but the father of, because
all he does is just read newspapers all day long.
Yeah, financial reports.
Yep.
All right, cool. On to the next one.
Let's go.